Greetings, everyone. The right energy is around this event, in this room, and with our online audience, as well as our online speakers. I want to greet you, friends of the Center for Reparation Research, members of the advisory board, the network of scholars, UWI colleagues, partner institutions, distinguished guests, both in the audience today and online. But first, let me acknowledge that the UWI Mona campus recognizes and declares that the land on which we operate as an institution of higher learning is the original or traditional territory of many peoples. The UWI acknowledges the First Nation comprising the indigenous people who were displaced by the Columbus Project and general European colonization, and the hundreds of Africans who toiled for more than 100 years as enslaved people on the old Papine sugar estate. The UWI recognizes their labor and sacrifices in preserving this land that has enabled the establishment of a university that now provides opportunities for many of their descendants to receive an education that they themselves were denied. We at the Center for Reparation Research have been focused on highlighting the CARICOM Reparation Commission's 10-point plan. That 10-point plan of 2013, which is currently being revised, is one that we consider a developmental plan. If you have been one of the unlucky ones to have missed the previous webinars, don't worry, they are all online at the Center for Reparation Research's website, the YouTube page. And the 10-point plan has offered the Caribbean a development blueprint, something we've been focusing on in these webinars over the last few months. And this blueprint is one to analyze the lasting legacies of chattel slavery in the region, and ultimately, most importantly, to effect repair. What are we repairing? The wrongs of the past. The plan details various areas of repair necessary to achieve a stable society, in fact, stable societies, which can surmount the challenges of the past, specifically within the boundaries of the plantation. The Center for Reparation Research strives through its mandate of education, advocacy, and research to create a space for interdisciplinary discussion about the whys and the hows for achieving fundamental developmental goals. Today, we partner with the Unuti Foundation to bring you Obia versus Obeah, Orality and the Reclamation of Spiritual Heritage. And there are so many more well-informed speakers than myself that I have no intention of taking too much time with introductory remarks. Indeed, I am looking forward to the learning, the sharing, and the exciting discussion, the informative discussion, the heart-piercing discussion. What is our focus today, therefore? This is a question about internal repair, what Dr. Claudette Anderson likes to refer to as knowledge reparation. She's going to talk about that. As much as it is about psychological, spiritual, and physical repair at the individual and collective levels. I am Sonia Stanley-Niall, Director of the Center for Reparation Research and Professor of Cultural Studies at the UWI, and I'm pleased to be welcoming you all for today's webinar and to the UWI. Before I introduce our panelists, our respondents, and discussants, I wish to encourage, as we engage in today's discussions, those of you online and here in person, to listen with an open mind, reflect on your own experiences, your own intimate, deeply personal experiences, and the cultural legacies within your communities. Your contributions will enrich our collective understanding of how reparatory justice can transform lives and rebuild cultural identity. I'm going to begin by introducing our speakers as they will appear. Professor Emily Zobel Marshall is of French, Caribbean, and British heritage and grew up in North Wales. She's professor of post-colonial literature at Leeds Beckett University, and her research specialisms are the cultures and literatures of the African diaspora, with a focus on the folkloric trickster figure and the Caribbean carnival cultures, and she's widely published in these fields. She has published numerous works, Anansi's Journey, American Trickster, a number of key publications, and she develops creative work alongside her academic writing and her poetry collection, Bath of Herbs, published in 2023. I move on now to Iya Oluwakemi Somorin, who is a consultant specializing in Yoruba culture and traditions. She imparts knowledge of Yoruba language and culture at the foundational level, exploring its philosophical nuances and cultural dynamics for students at the Center for Language Learning at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. Additionally, she offers guidance on Yoruba ancient philosophy and traditions to a global audience. Reverend Marvia Laws, Dr. Reverend Marvia Laws, is a public theologian and minister of religion. Ordained to Christian ministry in 2001, she has pastored congregations in Jamaica as well as Panama. She currently pastors 3 congregations in the Sligoville Circuit of Baptist churches, Jamaica's historic first free village. Her academic work in historical theology has been largely located at the intersection of gender and race, looking at the spiritual heritage and the spirituality of resistance. Reverend Laws is rapporteur to the World Council of Churches reference group on overcoming racism, xenophobia, and casteism, and chairs the Social Issues Commission of the Jamaica Baptist Union, a very important lady right here now. Professor Diana Patton is a historian of the Caribbean-based Edinburgh University. Her books include The Cultural Politics of Obia, Religion, Culture, and Modernity in the Caribbean World, Obia and Other Powers, The Politics of Caribbean Religion and Healing, edited with Marit Ford, and No Bond But the Law, perhaps the most popular of them that many of us may know the title of, No Bond But the Law, Punishment, Race, and Gender in Jamaican State Formation, 1780 to 1870. She has worked with teachers, performing artists, theater makers to bring wider attention to Caribbean history, including a project with Scottish school teachers teaching slavery in Scotland, among others. N. Fadeke Castro is a Black feminist ethnographer and African diaspora studies scholar with interest in religion, race, performance, and the intersectional politics of decolonization. She's the author of Spiritual Citizenship, Transnational Pathways from Black Power to Ifa in Trinidad, published by Duke University Press in 2017, and it received the Clifford Geertz Prize in 2018. Their writings can be found in Cultural Anthropology, Fieldwork in Religion, Tarka, The Black Scholar, among other leading journals. And Dr. Castor's current research focuses on an exploration of the spiritual ontologies and epistemologies of Black spiritual praxis. She is an assistant professor of religion and Africana studies at Northeastern University. Amina Blackwood Meeks, a name well known to us, is a cultural studies college holds a PhD in cultural studies. She is college orator and lecturer in Caribbean culture and identity and the self, ethics and creativity at the Endemali College of the Visual and Performing Arts, an award-winning writer, actress, storyteller, founder, artistic director of Entukuma, the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica, and founder director of Anansi Soundsplash, the international storytelling conference and festival staged annually in Jamaica. Amina successfully petitioned for the proclamation of November 20 as National Storytelling Day. I think I must clap for that. Yes, indeed. A fantastic proclamation there, just relocating and refocusing our attention on the importance of storytelling as a nation. She's a tireless advocate for preserving the rich tapestry of Caribbean folklore as a means of connecting with our roots, fostering cultural pride, and inspiring future generations. She has a large body of artistic works, including 5 CDs of stories, 1 CD of poems, children's books, and among other things. She's also an award-winning storyteller. Afia Fofie, Okomfo Afia Fofie, is a practitioner and teacher of African spirituality with primary focus on the Akan, Congolese, and Edo spiritual systems. She's a founding director of Sankofie Limited, a membership organization focused on helping us to reclaim and reconnect with the traditions and customs of our ancestral groups. With an emphasis on spiritual culture, Sankofie seeks to raise consciousness and improve our knowledge of the ways of life of the many ethnic groups of Africans who came and the Jamaican indigenous people who received them. Nana Fofie is the author of 2 books of poetry and is a resident Okomfo at Sankofie, which it is said, we have a claim to many and many will claim us. Claudette Anderson. Dr. Claudette Anderson is Executive Director and Professor of Obia at Unuchi Foundation, an Afro-Atlantic religious reparations nonprofit, and she's our discussant today. She received her PhD in interdisciplinary studies in cognitive ethnomedicine and religion from Emory University in 2010. Her dissertation from Gnostic Obia, from Chukwu Abiyama to Jarastafari, a theology of the Jam African Obia Catholic Church, uses a cognitive lens to argue for Obia/Obia, OBIA/OBAAH as scientific religion. Her research focuses on African-derived religions in the Anglophone Caribbean, as well as Africana indigenous systems of knowledge and oracular traditions. She has published on Afro-Caribbean spirituality, revival religion, Afro-Jamaican medicine, and spirituality, among other things. And as an advocate of knowledge reparations, she is very much behind the movement to have the Obia laws in Jamaica repealed. They have been repealed in other islands, but we somehow in Jamaica remain quite stubborn at this kind of repair at the cultural and spiritual level. So let us begin with Emily. Professor Zobel Marshall, over to you.
Thank you so much. And it's a real delight to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, excellent. So I wanted to start just by talking a little bit about Anansi, connecting Anansi to Obia. So this is my book, Anansi's Journey, and it saddens me that I've not been back to Jamaica since I did my extensive research for this book in 2015. Now, sorry, 2005. I spent several months talking to storytellers about Anansi and collecting Anansi stories all over the island. And what I wanted to do with my work is to connect Anansi to his roots in West Africa and look at how Anansi stories had been adapted in Jamaica and the role that Anansi played in Jamaica in the contemporary. My main argument, and this is an argument which many of you are familiar with, is that Anansi is a source of resistance, and especially to enslaved people. What I found fascinating was that in Ghana, in the West African context, Anansi is a deity, a mediator between the world of humankind and the world of the gods. And so he brings things from Nyame. Some of these are good things like stories, and some of these and wisdom, and some of these are things which cause problems on earth, like serpents. Anansi also knows no bounds. He can do anything he wants in the Ghanaian stories. His penis is 12 foot tall. He can break it into 12 pieces and impregnate 12 different women. So there's nothing that can contain Anansi. But we're also talking about a highly structured society amongst the Ashanti of Ghana. So these stories acted as a kind of wish fulfillment. So a dream of a way of behaving which would not be acceptable in the here and now. As we trace the stories to Jamaica, we see these interactions with the deities fall away, and it's not Nyame that Anansi is cheating anymore, but it's Bakra, it's Massa, it's the white boss, and Anansi is trying to steal from Massa. He's taking his sheep, he's trying to sleep with his wife. So instead of this fantasy of freedom, it's a gaining of freedom in the here and now. And my argument is that the Anansi stories formed a type of psychological resistance that would then turn into a practical resistance on the plantations. So everything from working slowly, breaking machinery, rubbing salt into old wounds, lying to get your own way, and carve yourself a little bit of space within the oppressive system of the plantation construct. And those in time could lead to more outright rebellion and revolt. So we find indigenous folk tales worldwide. So the trickster is actually found across the world. And my theory on this is that as human beings, we long for freedom. So we revel in these fantasies. But when that freedom is taken away from us, the fantasy becomes our a direct need, and it becomes a part of our lived experience. Now, Anansi is linked to Obia in all sorts of interesting ways. Anansi traditionally carries a bag, and a folklorist called Lily Perkins wrote that Anansi is the Ashanti word for spider, and it's particularly applied to a long blackish spider who carries around a big white sack. And with his special movements, his venomous bite to other insects, and his medicine bag, he is the prototype of the Obeah man. So Anansi is framed by many folklorists as being like an Obeah man and carrying a sack, and like an Obeah man's sack. The other connection of Anansi to Obia is that the stories were told during the 9-night ceremonies to entertain the spirit of the dead, to make sure the duppy doesn't arise, and in that very important moment when the soul is considered to be traveling. So Anansi stories are told during 9 nights to entertain the spirit of the dead. And another connection between Anansi and Obeah and African spirituality is that Anansi isn't, you can't tell Anansi stories traditionally in the daytime. So it's a creature of the night. Now, I'll just wrap up. I don't want to take more than my 5 minutes. But some of the ways in which we can draw from Anansi and link the Anansi stories to the 10-point plan. And so in New Orleans, I visited Mardi Gras recently, and the Egungun figure, the Yoruba Egungun, has not been a part of the ceremony in New Orleans Mardi Gras. But they have brought the Egungun back into Mardi Gras. And every year there is now a visiting Nigerian Yoruba priest. And people are learning Yoruba rituals, they're learning parts of the Yoruba language, and they're also taken to the streets to dance the Egungun. Now, this bringing back of West African rituals and West African spirituality in the here and now is the sort of thing that we need to see more of. It's these sorts of initiatives that need to be supported in the Caribbean to re-engage with African cultural roots. And the CARICOM 10-point plan for reparatory justice also brings attention to the lack of museums in the Caribbean that tell the story of the enslaved. You know, we have these kind of museums in Liverpool. I know that in Barbados, there's a plan to have a museum. Guadeloupe has the Center of Expression and Memory of Human Trafficking and Slavery. But there needs to be the resources to create the museums to tell the stories. My grandfather tells the story in Black Shack Alley, where he grew up in Martinique, about how Monsieur Meadows, a storyteller and a cane cutter, was his first connection to his African roots. And it was through this elderly man who was a griot and a storyteller that he learned about his past, and he learned about the story of enslavement and so-called emancipation. So these can happen in the oral, but it also needs to be happening physically. So we need more stories like this to be told. Thank you. Oh, I can't hear you actually anymore.
Yes.
That's better. Fantastic.
That's better. Fabulous.
Yes.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your presentation, Emily. I think locating something that we have had in our tradition in the Caribbean, storytelling and otherwise, in the form of Anansi, this trickster god, this figure that has permeated our lives, whether as children or as adults, in fact, that there is a connection. If we understand Anansi as a character, as a figure, as a living presence in our reality, there is a connection to the ancestral world. And that is what you have brought us in mind of. So let me ask Oluwakemi Somorin to give us her remarks.
Good day, everybody. I'm Oluwakemi Somorin. I've been introduced, I teach Yoruba at the Center for Language Learning. What people may call I teach Yoruba, and I understand the ritual practice of Ifa. What is Ifa? You know, when I first came to Trinidad and Tobago, even before coming to Trinidad and Tobago, I've seen, heard, interacted with people from the West connecting to their roots in many different ways, reclaiming their tradition, their spirituality. And I think the act of reclaiming of the spirituality did not just started now. It has started a long time before, even when our ancestors were brought to the Caribbean or to the West. They've used different means to sustain, to retrace, to connect to their roots in many ways. And this was what has been termed Obia or Obeah in different form. Even in Nigeria, any African spirituality by the colonial is considered juju. So Obia in Caribbean, juju in the West Africa, in West Africa. And I have seen the different ways through which our ancestors, our people have tried to sustain, maintain, and to practice their spirituality in different forms, in how they reclaim their names, bearing their names, in the different practices of the tradition in different yards, Orisha, Ifa, and they've also in different ways through which when during the Obia law, they fought to make sure that, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, that the African people, the African tradition has a voice. Kudos to Yentu Springer and other members that have assisted in making sure that African spirituality is being heard, is practiced, and the banning of the legislation that prevent the practice of Obia in Trinidad and what is called Obia in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, what is considered as Obia in Trinidad and Tobago or in the Caribbean, other Caribbean island, can be seen as our spiritual practices, which is our way of life. Among those that are called Yoruba today, we call it Ifa. And what is Ifa? Ifa is a body of knowledge, information that guides our understanding about every aspect of our life, talks about our interaction with seen and unseen, both in this realm of existence and in outer realm of existence. And this information are used to guide how we interact with things, with nature, guide us into having a better understanding of things around us, our spirituality, the Himalayas, guiding us about who the Himalayas are, what we can use them for. And Ifa makes us to also understand that life is about duality, both premise on duality, tibitire daliaye. So all this information are in the hands of spiritual specialists, talking about why we need to reclaim our ancestors' way of life. It is important for us to know where we're coming from. Just as the picture of Sankofa explained, we need to understand, we need to connect. Understanding Ifa as a way of life will expose to us who we are, what we need to connect to. Reclaiming our tradition will allow us to better entrench ourselves into knowing what our future holds for each and every one of us. So Ifa as a body of knowledge, as we all know, is organized in what is called Odu. And if we all understand this Odu, we will understand what our world is all about, why we're here, why we're in this location, different information, our past about our present. Also, that one of the main reasons why I teach Yoruba is as a way to assist in the reconnecting of the tradition, the pronunciation of words, the pronunciation of the word, and also the role that words play in the practice of Ifa and Orisha as a way of life. I appreciate and I give kudos to all our ancestors that have kept the tradition alive in the song, in the performance, during Kambule, the Kambule portrayals in different ways, Mokojombi. In Nigeria, we call Mokojombi Agere, and it has its own roles among the African people. So these are different ways through which our African people are reclaiming. And the more we reclaim our history, our spirituality, the more we are more connected to who we are and what we are all about. And I also want us to understand that when our tradition is being defamed or being called a different name, I want us to understand that from the perspective of the colonial, they want to colonize us. They want to empower us. No, they want to depower us. They want to make us lose the power. So they will call our tradition indifferently, but we need to own it. We need to be proud of who we are. And again, too, like my grandmother will say that when you have a power, you can use it for different purposes, whether for good or for bad. Remember that Obia has been used in many ways, in different ways, whether to protect, to heal, and Ifa also as a way of life has been used in different ways to heal, to protect, to defend in many ways. So understanding what Ifa is, understanding what our ancestors represent their spirituality will guide us into knowing more about ourselves, knowing what we represent, knowing where we are and where we're going. So this is my submission to this reclamation, Obia, and on the topic. Hello?
We're not hearing you, Sonia. Dr. Stanley Nayo, we're not hearing.
Unmute.
All that. Hearing us now?
Yes, we are.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you. We were saying thank you very much, and you missed the applause in the room, Kenny, perhaps. There was a round of applause, and I was suggesting that you have helped us to connect quite a long trajectory of traditions that have helped us to continue to connect with spirituality. And you've told us, not just today, but this connection has been happening for some time as we try to sustain and maintain spirituality in different forms. And you even touched on the ways in which those forms include the Mokojumbe, the Kambale. The performative traditions are also in the mix, very much a part of the corpus or the modes of connection. So let's move now to Reverend Marvia Laws, who is in the room with us today. Amina, if you just give her the microphone beside you, yes, we can hear your presentation.
So good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity. Although I'm pretty sure that even those online, and perhaps some of you right here in the room are wondering, what is a minister of religion doing in the midst of a conversation about Obia? She has no reason to be here. So, so the disclaimer at the start is to say that I'm here in a personal capacity. I am not speaking on behalf of the Jamaica Baptist Union, so please do not go and burn down the JBU's office. My views are my own, and in fact, it started out during my years of theological training, trying to make sense of my own journey, my faith journey, and tying that into the context in which I've grown up and the context in which I still reside, which is Jamaica. So in 1999, I graduated from the United Theological College of the West Indies. And this is important because after you graduate from the United Theological College of the West Indies, in our tradition, the Jamaica Baptist Union and similar traditions, you have a probationary period. And in that probationary period, your requirements include a research paper. And I chose as my research paper, my topic was the Native Baptist spirituality, reclaiming the heritage. So that has brought me here today, because my quest to understand our origins as Baptists and to get a sense of our history in Jamaica helped me to understand some of the things I would have encountered over the years as a student pastor across Jamaica, in parishes of St. Thomas, in Trelawney, in St. Catherine, where I originate from. I would have seen those practices that many persons would have labeled as Obia. And I know in particular that my own Baptist tradition, the Jamaica Baptist Union tradition, would have had labels within it as being those who are practitioners of Mayal or Mayalism. So I wanted to make sense of all these things that were in my religious tradition and also from my own background. Having tried to make sense of Mayalism, anybody who knows the definition of Obia, the current definition, the definition does state that the law defines it as Obia shall be deemed to be one of or one and the same meaning as Mayalism. A person practicing Obia means any person who, to effect any fraudulent or unlawful purpose or for gain or for the purpose of frightening any person, uses or pretends to use any occult means or pretends to possess any supernatural power or knowledge. An instrument of Obia means anything that is used or intended to be used by a person and pretended by such person to be possessed of any occult or supernatural power. Now, anyone who has done any study of religion at all would know right up front that this definition is problematic, because as a minister of religion, I do claim to have supernatural power in a sense, because I do believe that I'm standing my faith journey, I'm speaking and I'm empowered to act in the power of the Holy Spirit. And you can challenge me therefore on what does that mean. So in understanding this whole matter of Obia, of Mayalism, etc. I'm looking at my own background within the Jamaica Baptist context and our Baptist history. And I found a number of contradictions that would require reconciliation, that would require an understanding of where we are. And among those is the need for us as theologians, as Christians in the region, to decolonize our theology, to understand what we call missionary theology, that although we do bring our Christian teachings from different parts of the world, and it originated in the Middle East in what we would consider now to be Palestine, Gaza, it would have gone to Europe and would have acquired layers, and then would have been brought along with the colonial project in a particular way. It has accompanied chattel slavery in a particular way, as a means of civilizing subjects, as a means of helping us to understand our ancestors, to understand what it meant to be civilized people. So it brought a lot of baggage. Yes, there are positives, and I stand firmly on those positives, but I also, from my place of integrity, am prepared and have been calling out the negative impacts as well. And those negative impacts also bring with it a spiritual legacy that would inform and continue to inform persons withdrawing or standing distant to our spiritual heritage. It is my belief, having done the 2 years of research, just those 2 years, and then taking that on to master's level study, where I took the spiritual heritage to be reclaimed, specifically to understand the spirituality of resistance among Jamaica Baptists. Where did that come from? 2 of the national heroes of Jamaica are Baptist deacons, Sam Sharp and Paul Bogle. They must have been informed by something more than the Christian teachings that they would have acquired later on. I did not believe that they came as blank slates. I believe that our African ancestors came with morality and moral courage, moral will, a will to connect it to something greater than themselves, and they exercised that. And that was what I believe was used to reinterpret Christianity when they encountered it in these parts the way they did. Moreover, that would have even pre-existed the 17th, 18th century, to include those who would have come before, such as Nanny and her siblings and the Maroons. They had spirituality, they had their moral groundings and foundations. So in my research, what I discovered, unfortunately, my research did not lead me to conclude that Obia was in fact the religion of the people in Jamaica. My research, in fact, and of course, maybe it's you know, researcher's bias. My research took me, in fact, to identify with Akan spirituality. And that would mean that I located it in Ghana, and therefore would have encountered figures in the ways of how our morality would have been communicated prior to. And those would be, of course, through our orality or oral culture, a consciousness that existed in these people. And of course, Dr. Amina would be here, the Anansi expert who I would have drawn upon, now learning about Professor Emily as well. But therein, we would see that in our folk culture, our storytelling, our cultural retentions, our knowledge of herbs, all of these would carry a sense of who we are, a spirituality and a consciousness that was greater than just individualism. So one of the things that I've done over the years is to try to encourage individuals to understand that when we're talking about Obia, as it is categorized or defined in the law, that it is problematic. If you ask the Jamaican, what is Obia? You're going to get a whole range of definition. Other words that really and truly, when you take those words and you try to connect them to occult practices, it is not uniquely African, or they are not uniquely African. So you're talking about, people use terms like witchcraft, black magic, sorcery, guzum. Those are some of the labels, evil working, demonic practices. But when you ask individuals to then define those terms and locate them, you'll find that a range of occult practices are embodied in a variety of practices in Jamaica, including in a number of secret societies. But those secret societies are not criminalized. So it then tells me that there must be something in particular about the African practicing these particular things. That's the problem. And so I then am of the impression and the opinion that the law itself, especially as it impacted the original, the early Baptists, who were considered mild and mild practitioners, that it was racist and it was intended to be suppressive of resistance. Because remember I said that I'm locating this in the Baptist tradition. And these Baptists were known when they gather to plan and to plot revolts and insurrections and to undermine and to sabotage. Therefore, the spirituality of resistance that I believe existed among Baptists was located in their African spiritual consciousness that they came with or were brought with to Jamaica and these parts. Therefore, if we're talking about what the law now defines, I wish to challenge that, because theosophically or occult practices are to be found in a range of other places and not just to be labeled as the thing that Africans practice. Additionally, I believe that not only is the law racist, and the term itself as defined is problematic because we cannot pin it down to what it really means, but I really believe that if we look at the practices in general, African spirituality, African spiritual consciousness, the morality that our people came with, that helped and empowered them to survive. If anyone has ever been to Ghana, for example, and have visited those castles, you will never, ever again underestimate what it took for our ancestors to survive that journey to Jamaica, to the New World, and then to survive the years of enslavement. It took something more. It's not accident. It's not coincidence. It's not just human strength. It took something great that they inhabited and that which inhabited them that they brought to these parts. I believe that the law itself is unconstitutional and ought to be challenged, because as a Baptist, I firmly believe in the freedom of speech. I believe in the freedom of religion. Freedom of religion means that you have a right to believe or not to believe. I stand firmly on that. That's what one of our tenets of our belief systems. And in that way, I therefore believe that everyone should have the right to practice their religious beliefs. And that means that if something was enacted that discriminated against my ancestors, it really ought to be removed and repealed. I also believe that our people, having been disempowered by these racist laws used to suppress or attempt to suppress us, that it has robbed us of a number of things. And I just mentioned two of them in particular. I believe that the stigma and discrimination that is attached to our folk forms, our language, music, dance, and cuisine has somehow allowed our practices to be tokenized and exoticized. So it is you can perform it. You can perform your spiritual consciousness for entertainment, and we will be applauded. But if you practice that as a connection to something greater, to divinity, it is illegal. There's something wrong with that. I also see the profiteering that must be challenged in our ethnomedicine and healing. Our people have been disempowered of this knowledge and told that all these things are superstitious. As a result of that, we have seen our people being distanced from the land. We are disconnected from the environment and the struggle for climate justice. We are told that all these things are superstitious. To boil some bush tea, it is nonsense. It is superstition. But when someone takes that knowledge and they study it and patent it and sell it back to us, that is considered pharmacology, and it is science. And so these are some of the things that I find and believe that as a people, for us to reclaim our heritage, to reclaim our spiritual heritage, it's a matter of urgency. It is to help our people to reconnect to their spiritual roots. I firmly believe this, because if we look at the Bible and the trajectory of faith in the scriptures, we see how to the very end, you will hear the God of our ancestors. And even though they present it as being an evolution from the time of the Yahwistic understanding of Yahweh, the God who wandered with the people in the wilderness, to when they became a people organized in the religious spaces of the synagogues or the temple, I firmly believe that we too must understand that we should not abandon the gods of our ancestors. We must give reverence to who they were and what they brought, because our integrity stands on it. And why does it? How can we applaud the rebellions and the revolts and say that our people have fought these battles for us, but fail to acknowledge the spirituality that informed these revolts? I hope that you understand where I'm coming from and where I'm going. And I just want to say thanks again for allowing me to share these few thoughts, and have a good afternoon.
Wow, thank you so much, Marvia, Reverend, for situating this context of contradictions for us. Indeed, the laws are racist, they are unconstitutional. And when we think about freedom of religion, whether you're a Baptist, you're a Methodist, you're a revivalist, there is something that gives you the human right to practice your religion. There is freedom of religion and freedom of cultural expression. Many persons understand religion to be very much cultural. And yes, thank you for reminding us about the fact that when we have been robbed of this kind of knowledge or the ability to even claim this knowledge, it amounts to disempowerment. It amounts to disconnection from vital resources such as the land, such as our medicines. Yet, if it is for profiteering, the science objectives, those we hear about being discussed on the labels like STEM, it is fine. But we note the contradictions, we note them, and we locate them in the context of a struggle for integrity as humans. And that in that struggle, we must not forget the guidance and the knowledge of our ancestors. I think we should have clap again. Yes, yes. So I want to now hand the platform to Dr. Diana Patton to share her remarks with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's a huge honor to be included in this panel and to hear the wonderful talks that we've already heard, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the afternoon. So I'm a historian, and I'm going to use my time to discuss the history of how we got to where we are today, to the situation that's just been so eloquently described, specifically with regard to Obia. So my comments will be quite broad in nature because we're talking about a long process, something that took place over hundreds of years of time. And although I will focus mainly on Jamaica, I want to also bring in some other parts of the Caribbean and think about how the region as a whole has developed in this regard. So I'm going to do something that historians often like to do, which is to sort of break up the past into some different periods of time. Having done quite a lot of research on the history of Obia, and in particular on the history of the suppression of Obia, I think we can see 4 big periods in this process. And that's what I wanted to speak about. So I think the first period that we need to focus on is the period of the establishment and coming to dominance of a society in the Caribbean that was fully dominated by slavery. I don't need to remind this audience that this is a world in which around 90% of the population was enslaved. And that was a hugely intensive, brutal system, the most brutal, most intensive system of slavery ever to be seen anywhere in global history. Now, the establishment of that system took place at different times in different Caribbean societies, but in Jamaica, we're talking about roughly the mid-17th century to the mid-18th century. This is a time then where there's a very rapid expansion of population, and the expansion of the population is based on very, very large-scale trafficking of enslaved people from Africa. People who were subjected to hugely traumatic conditions that were designed to strip people of their spiritual knowledge, of their culture, of their ability to form connections with one another. And then on arrival in the Caribbean, these people who had faced those conditions on board the ships also faced extraordinarily brutal conditions of everyday life. And yet, at the same time, in this early period, there wasn't really a very active program of cultural eradication from the plantocracy. In that period before the mid-18th century, enslavers weren't especially interested in the culture of those they enslaved. They did understand African culture as inferior to their own European or British culture, but they didn't take very active steps to try to change that culture, certainly not in comparison to later years. And in that context, enslaved Africans in Jamaica and in other parts of the Caribbean were, despite everything, able to forge connections with one another. They drew on a variety of African heritages, including especially from Congo and from the Akan cultures of today's Ghana, to create new cultural forms, including the Jamaican language and other Caribbean creoles, African Creole foodways, music, and so on. And importantly, they forged a set of spiritual and religious practices that would, in different ways, come to be referred to as Obia. Now, that's our first period I identify. The second period is the later period of slavery. And you see, I think, a big change from around 1760 in Jamaica, which is the year of Tacky's rebellion. So we're looking at that period from then until the end of apprenticeship in 1838, a little bit later elsewhere in the Caribbean. And in this period, we see increased hostility to African cultures from both the governments, colonial governments, and from enslavers, due to fear that spiritual work would be used to cultivate solidarity among the enslaved, as it had done in 1760. And then in the 19th century, this fear combined with a missionary project, which aimed to save souls, with missionary practices, sometimes shading towards anti-slavery, but at the same time, missionaries coming from Britain holding a profoundly anti-African view. So this is the period in which Obia became illegal. The first law against Obia in Jamaica was passed in 1760, a bit later in other parts of the region. And these laws were regularly enforced, including executions and banishments of people convicted of Obia. The prosecutions in that period were particularly directed against people who led rebellions, and sometimes against people who harmed other enslaved people or their alleged owners. This is also the period when a form of Creole Afro-Christianity became widespread among enslaved people. And that was a Creole Christianity that was deeply ambivalent about African religious practices and beliefs. Although it used much African embodied knowledge, it also often explicitly rejected some aspects of African knowledge. We then move into the third period, which is a long period from the end of slavery to independence. There's a lot of change in that time, but for the sake of brevity, I'll discuss it as one period. And the end of slavery had profound consequences. It meant that ordinary people in the Caribbean had much more control over their cultural lives. It saw a general trend away from European cultures among the mass of the population, and African Christianity became increasingly Caribbeanized and Black-led. But at the same time, the dominant political class, including both the largely white plantocracy and also increasingly a brown middle class, led a drive against that autonomy of the mass of the population. And that drive included the use of laws and the formation of new laws against Obia. So in Jamaica, laws against Obia were revived in 1833 when Obia was included as a crime as part of the vagrancy law. Then in 1854, there was a new law specifically against Obia. And then the law that still remains today was passed in 1998, and that's the law that the previous speaker read out to us, the definition of Obeah there. And other colonies had similar trends. These laws included really sweeping definitions of Obeah, which potentially criminalized, in fact, any religious activity, including mainstream Euro-Christianity, could be criminalized under the definition of Obeah, although that was not the intention or the use of the law. Hundreds of cases were brought at a much higher rate than during the period of slavery. And the vast majority of these cases were brought against people who did not think of what they were doing as Obeah. They were sometimes balm healers, spiritual mothers, people who thought of themselves as scientists or professors or spiritual workers in all kinds of religious traditions. But rather than naming the range of religions, such as Baptist or Revival or Orisha, the law singled out Obeah and used it to name all African-related spiritual practice. And then that brings us to the final period, which is the period from independence to the present. And in that period, as far as I can tell, there's sort of almost complete end to prosecutions for Obeah. But in Jamaica, and until recently in most other parts of the region, the law against Obeah was maintained. And this is the period in which independent Caribbean states developed state-sponsored cultural nationalism, the kind of thing where you could perform the culture, if not really practice it, as Dr. Laws just described. And I think what that reveals is that there was a continued deep ambivalence stemming from deep anti-Africanisms that had been fostered in Caribbean culture. And it also stemmed from the fact that Obeah had become a term with a really complex set of meanings. On the one hand, it encompassed a broad range of African-oriented religious practices that involved communication with a spirit world. And at the same time, it also signified for many the attempt to use that spiritual power for hostile or negative ends. And this double meaning, I think, has meant that it's been incredibly difficult to transform legal and popular laws. And that's been particularly so in Jamaica compared to other parts of the Caribbean, because as it's already been said, the laws against Obeah have been repealed in quite a number of other Caribbean nations. So it seems to me this historical process by which that double meaning emerged is a really critical part of the reparations program that needs to take place, including the kind of cultural institutions that people are trying to argue for and to put into place. And I hope that historical sketch at least helps us sort of situate where we have come from and where we are today. Thank you. I'll end.
Thank you so much, Diana. I think reminding us of that long historical trajectory over hundreds of years, just locating for us the broad sketch of the periods, certainly how Obeah becomes criminalized, and also how today in contemporary Jamaica, in some parts of the Caribbean beyond Jamaica, there is still ambivalence in relation to these cultural practices, these spiritual traditions. And even in the context of a let me say, a rabid, even internationally recognized cultural nationalism, we still have this ambivalence in relation to these spiritual practices and these ancestral traditions. So let me go now to N. Fadeke Castro, who will share with us on her own perspectives in relation to this theme.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you to the Center for Reparation Research at the University of the West Indies for having me here today. And special thanks to Professor Sonia Stanley for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. Hold on, let me go back to the I'm excited to be here in conversation with this amazing panel. Today, I offer a look at a recent work, Spiritual Ethnicity, Our Collective Ancestors in Ifa Devotion Across the Americas, where I reflect on a ritual for the ancestors at an Ifa conference in Trinidad, where I experienced in the ancestral matrix, a temporal fold where pathways continue to inspire visions of community that overcome difference. And from this space, inspiring visions of new subjectivities became available that I argue have the potential to transcend the divine legacies, the divisive legacies of slavery and colonialism. If I could ask the room in UE to mute, I think there's some feedback. Yes, if you could mute.
Nicole, can you hear us still?
Yes, I'm asking if you can mute your room because when I speak, it's giving feedback with your mic on. Thank you. Before reflecting on gifts from our spiritual legacy, let me touch briefly on my methodological journey to this point. I contemplate lessons learned from our ancestors in communities that take seriously Black sacred knowledge systems through the lens of Black feminist ethnography. Over 20 years ago, in the introduction to the essential volume, Black Feminist Anthropology, Irma McLaurin extended from the work of Lee Baker and Faye Harrison and building on generations of under-referenced and resourced Black anthropologists to establish that, quote, Black feminist anthropology is marked by its acknowledgement of theoretical, ideological, and methodological diversity among its participants, end quote. I offer this work today in that tradition of exploring some of the theoretical and methodological diversity that comes from ethnographic engagements with lived religions across the African diaspora, especially in the Caribbean, where communities are engaged in surviving the many challenges of today's world, while and through drawing on other ways of being. I think that many of us can agree that, to put it mildly, the current world we live in is not where we want it to be, individually, or even more importantly, collectively as society. And the current trajectory, by many measures, is going in a direction that does not appear to be leading us to necessarily a better place. If we agree on this, many questions are raised, an obvious one being, where do we want to go? Followed by, how do we get there? I think that the project of reparations that brought us all together today is an important part of the answer to this question. I joined generations of Black feminist theorists, leaders, artists, and visionaries who are thinking, organizing, and working to manifest this better future. I draw my inspiration from them and from the often unheralded and unrecognized spiritual leaders and practitioners. This latter group, I argue, are grounded in sacred ways of being and sacred ways of knowledge that inform the construction of our world and can inform our visions of the future. I propose that we can learn from a serious engagement with African and Indigenous sacred epistemologies, ways of knowing, and that they can lead us to envision these new futures. Today, I ask that we contemplate the implications of listening to the voice of the ancestors and the path they open to reflect on embodiment and temporality. These reflections on Black sacred knowledge making are part of a larger project where the next step is mapping a liberatory pathway to the otherwise, or in other terms, developing a decolonial praxis at the epistemic and ontological level. I begin with visiting the ancestors to raise a question about gifts from our spiritual heritage, including non-linear temporalities. Wolewa Eriwo rang out, asking for our attention and beckoning us forward. In response, we abandoned our seats to gather on the stage, deep in Santa Cruz, in Trinidad's Santa Cruz Valley. Thwop thwop, boom boom, thwop thwop rang out as the drummers echoed the call, the skin of their hands hitting the skin of the drumhead. Soon the rhythms were supporting and energizing our own call and response as we sang, Eguna Lagbao, Eguna Lagbao. The ancestors were calling, and we had gathered in response. Or was it that we were calling the ancestors and they were responding? Yes, indeed, the ancestors were coming. Egunwao. As the energy built, the drums and song demanded a physical response. It became harder and harder for me to hold my hand steady. I was recording video for my own research as my hips went one way and my head moved another. I tried to direct all the movement to my foot, tapping with the drums, though the visible sways and dips on the video attest to my ultimate failure to stay still. Emerging from this interplay of movement and rhythms were the voices of the elders as they invoked the spiritual energies of the ancestors. This impromptu ritual found us deep in Trinidad's Santa Cruz Valley at the Orisha Shrine, Ile Eko Shango Oshun Melosha, or Isam, and their Ifa temple, Erin Tegbe. A diverse group of devotees had gathered from across the Americas in 2012 for a multi-day conference on Ifa called Alasuwada. As we paid homage to the Egungun, Yoruba masquerade of the collective ancestors, what became visible was the construction of a shared emotional connection between spirit and participants. The ancestral ritual created community through a combination of dialogue and reflections on African diasporic belonging and embodied ritual greetings. The boundaries and borders of nationality, language, race, and color bridged in this ritual moment created subjectivities that I characterized in the longer piece under the term spiritual ethnicity. We were directed, everyone must greet, go and meet every person. First greet the elders and Egungun, then greet everyone. This injunction to physically greet all the participants in this conference on the Ifa religion and its application to community building and public policy struck me for its lack of efficiency. My body, keyed into a secular conference with its linear time expectations, was anxious since I was scheduled to present a paper that day for my own research. And in this distinctly non-secular setting, it looked as if my presentation was going to be seriously delayed if it happened at all. On that Saturday morning, instead of hearing people present their papers and then having the scheduled panel discussions, we all gathered together on the stage with people overflowing onto steps and down the sides. Who were we? In that moment, who were we? In answering this question, it strikes me that beyond the collectivity created by the embodied creation of spiritual, what made a greater impact on me was the underlying argument here of shifting temporalities. Ancestor reverence works through a different, alternative, if you will, temporality from the dominant Western capitalistic time form. In calling on these elevated spirits of those who have gone before, a calling that invokes direct hereditary lineages or bluntsmanship, ritual lineages, and cultural lineages. The past, that which was, comes into the present moment, that which is, to have an impact on the future, that which is yet to be. In addition to this fairly straightforward linear temporality, in which the past and the present impact the future, there are other constructions, such as where our actions in the present moment affect the past. As Deborah Thomas argues, people have, quote, an experience of time neither as linear or cyclical, but as simultaneous, where the future, past, and present are mutually constitutive and have the potential to be coincidentally influential, end quote, in conditions of exceptional violence, such as slavery, colonialism, and their aftermath. This collapsing of a linear time frame provides a powerful space for spiritual praxis. In this ancestral time, knowledge can be transmitted, skills learned, and vital heritage passed on. It is in this liminal space where social identities are reimagined as people experience the freedom to re-enter their personal narratives, past, present, and future. This movement of temporality does not only occur in an individual framing. Rather, it exists in a web of spiritual kinship, extending into the multiple temporal registers that I named above. And in this recentering, communities have the potential to be formed not only across time and space, but also across perceived divisions of social identity, be they ethnicity, gender, nationality, or language community. For many, this center is conceptualized as an imagined home, often located in the ancestral Ile-Ife of Yoruba land. As Ivor Miller points out, participating in African-derived religions is a method of maintaining historical counter-narratives in which the present generation has direct links to an African past, end quote. And these counter-narratives not only extend backwards into the past, but also pertain to the present. They inform the construction of subjectivities and mobilize agency into our futures and beyond, where perhaps one day we will be ancestors. As previously invoked, this is the energy of Sankofa. This ancestral time-space, or ancestral matrix, exists in the Yoruba religion within the cosmic realm. And it is through ritual, especially collective ritual, that people in Ile-Aye, the earth, interface with the cosmic realm. The directives of Ifa, under whose guidance we were gathered for the Alasawada conference, convey the importance of working together, of collectivity, of unity. My contention is that Black sacred knowledge systems, otherwise known as Obia, have long offered us lessons in how to navigate our world, and how to commune with the divine, and how to be both singular and multiple, both individual and collective, and how to build community across historically created divisions, and how to ensure a better future by healing our past. As I go to close, let me say that it is the fear of Obia, which is a fear of power. And it's a fear of power in the hands of African people. And it is our heritage, our spiritual heritage, that informs our cultural heritages across the Caribbean that are a source of strength and power. And it is in embracing those in the current moment that we are able to go back and heal the past and to help then build our future and build and envision a better world and a better future. So let me close by thanking you for your attention today. I'm honored to be in conversation with all of you and look forward to what I know will be a rich discussion of the importance of centering our spiritual inheritances, which inform so much of our Caribbean cultures. Thank you.
We can't hear you, Sonia. We can't hear you.
Yes, are you back?
Yes.
Am I back? Yes, fantastic. Nico, Fadeke, Dr. Castor, you didn't hear the round of applause. I'm going to ask the audience in the room to repeat that. Thank you so much. I think that we have we can't say that we did not get from your presentation this idea you've shared with us in the finale, the sentence, that your contention is that Black sacred knowledge systems offer lessons in how to navigate the world, building community, healing paths, and in fact, our spiritual heritage, informing even our cultural heritage that will bring us the healing of the past and building our futures. I'm paraphrasing, of course, and using some of your words. I think that's my takeaway, and certainly the takeaway that will inform our discussions moving forward in this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Castor. I want to now hand over to our respondents. First, Dr. Amina Blackwood-Meeks, our storyteller in residence, our college orator, lecturer in Caribbean culture and identity, and Nancy own self, to give us her remarks, and then we'll hand over to Okomfo Afia-Fofe to give us her own response as well before we go to our discussant, Claudette Anderson.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I've been given permission not to have to go to the lectern. I haven't seen Sonia Stanley Nair since she became Professor Sonia Stanley Nair. So we need to acknowledge that with love and respect. Congratulations. And we need to say thank you so very much for inviting us to participate in this very important discussion. And thanks to all the presenters before for the range of perspectives into which all the perspectives seem to have merged. I'm concerned with the use of the word reclamation in the topic, orality and the reclamation of spiritual heritage. And I'm concerned because when we talk about Sankofa, go back and fetch, we need clarity as to what is the point that we are going back to fetch. And I think in this going back to fetch, we often omit to mention that the continent itself was the victim of colonialism. And therefore, many of us came here with colonized and colonialized perspectives of who we are and what we were bringing. So I think we need to do a number of things when we are reclaiming. We need to have an understanding of what was lost, where it was lost, how it was lost, and we need to be able to quantify that loss. So understanding the loss and the point of reclamation become very important to me. I rather like Reverend Marvia's use of the word exotica and the performative nature of what we do as spirituality, because sometimes I think we are only performing and we like to be treated as exotica. So in the case of Jamaica, if we still go through Fern Gully, we still see individuals who get up in the mornings and dress themselves in the foliage in Fern Gully and perform and take pictures. And And at the end of the day, that foliage is discarded. And yet we recognize, or we talk about recognizing our connection to the unseen, our connection to the environment, the spirits in the trees as part of that spirituality. But we don't know how we sabotage that or why we sabotage that for reasons that we can talk about. The language, I don't want to get into the debate about Anansi. That is a whole another 3 days, Professor. But the language that we use when we talk about Anansi is so much the language of the European lens. We talk about Anansi as a gallus. Him want somebody wife. We talk about Anansi as stealing. That's the language of the oppressor. And we seldom talk about Anansi as creating things. Thank you. As taking us across those crossroads of helping us to navigate. And I think we really and truly have to be aware that Anansi, those words, you know, every culture has a trickster character, but only when it comes to Anansi is trickster a negative word. But because we're so limited by the language that has colonized our perspective, we have not yet found a different word that expresses who we are. I want to say that there is a way in which the things which are marginalized coincide with the people who are marginalized. So the Rastaman is marginalized. Revivalists are marginalized, and so on and so forth. There are other examples, and we go to them for the artistry and the pageantry of it. But we cannot find art or pageantry before we experience culture. And so how do we teach ourselves to experience our culture? And perhaps the final point I want to make at this point in time is the way in which we talk about reclamation as if we have to go so far back to find something, as if we have not carried anything with us, as if we don't have the Rasta man telling us one love. In 1973, a boat, the Friedensborg, was salvaged in Curacao. The Dutch love to think that them never enslaved nobody, but the Friedensborg gives that a lie. And in this boat or ship or whatever we want to call the vessel, some rings were discovered that come all the way from Africa with the royal people that they captured and put on that boat. You know, one of them, the inscription translates as one love. Long live the Rastaman. So we talk about the Rastaman who a bunny whaler tell us we are reincarnated souls from that time, living on earth, heat, air, and water in a this time. And there are other ways in which we have carried our spirituality. But because we marginalize some people, we have closed the doors to accessing it. So the story is but one. The religions, which, yeah, we are reincarnated souls in which we see it. The riddles and proverbs that our grandparents use, the chanting, the Nyabingi chanting, and the playing of the drums, all of dub poetry, all of these modern iterations, naming and languaging, and the revival pilgrimage, the community gatherings and the grandmothers telling stories on the back steps, or there are still grandmothers in rural Jamaica who know say at 3 o'clock like a picnic going to be passing to go home. And they make little drops and little lemonade and little all of that. It's not entertainment. It's not just feeding them belly. And we know when we talk, for example, about Anansi and the magic pot, and him find this pot that can cook up food. It wasn't only about physical food. It was about a spiritual nurturing. And that's why when somebody else take the pot, them get a beaten, because that was not their ori. That was not their medicine. And so I want to conclude at this moment to say that we need to look at the everyday manifestations of the spirituality that we carry as a collective. But because we have marginalized those carriers, we don't see it as our spiritual heritage. We treat it as exotica and as something to perform. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My sister Amina spoke about the Anansi, and I really hate to belabor the point, but I can't pass it, Sister Amina. Tell me to leave it alone since you speak so eloquently to it already now. But I can't leave it because you see what? Me and Nancy are good friend, you know. Me and Nancy are good friend. And himself telling us say, the next time I open my mouth, the first thing you shouldn't say about him is that he's a trickster. He not trick nobody. We have a habit of calling many of our spiritual energies trickster when they are the ones who bring to us the messages about the complexities and contradictions of life. They're not tricking nobody, or you trick yourself. They don't trick us. When Anansi passed down the road and somebody say, look at him, look at him this, look at him that, and then they start fighting whatever. Is Anansi do that, or you do that? The energy of Anansi teaches us about the complexities and the contradictions in life. Don't you see them every day? So how can come to be a trickster? A beautiful English word like that. We want to give it to it. And some people do regard him as deity. Some people do regard him. If you hear the stories, some of the basic stories they tell in Ghana about Anansi, is that Anansi actually got spiritual permission. Him get good initiation because he had to go to Onyame. Onyame was the keeper of all the stories. It was Onyame who had all the stories, you know, at first, not nobody else. But Anansi came to our space now with a purpose to be a storyteller. Him born on a Wednesday, him have to be a storyteller. Hello. Him not born Monday, Tuesday, Friday. Him born on a Wednesday. That sense, Kweko Anansi. Kweko is the name of a male born on a Wednesday. It's simply not so complicated. How will we get him to be trickster? When he simply talks about how life can be. Remember, Anansi, when the next time you say trickster, try remember something like community builder. You see the web in Bill? Yeah, man. You see all of that? You know, that's one of the strongest materials on the earth. If that ever hold a community together, we're going to take them out. He's a community builder. So, me can't even know if I say, but try put trickster somewhere down at the bottom. Because it really does not pay tribute to what Anansi is. And that begs the question of Sister Mina saying, how far do we go back? Because many of the speakers talked about the knowledge systems, and we're not talking about today's knowledge system for certain. We're talking about the knowledge system before it was terrorized and enslaved and all of these kinds of things made, you know, debased on all of these kinds of things. We have to go back as far as we need to go back. And I don't know how people determine that, because each one of us is plugged in at a different level of consciousness. Each one is plugged in at a different level of knowledge, and each one of them decide how much more they need and what the journey back, if we can even call it, because we come again to Sankofa. A couple of people here mentioned Sankofa. You know, the beautiful Yoruba ritual that our sister was describing, she talked about Sankofa. Sankofa is a can. But look here, Sankofa now transcends space and time and spiritual systems. Because if we associate Sankofa with Nyame, and we claim one God, and Nyame is one of the names for God, him not transcend everything that's gone clear to God. So we have to be very careful now when we talk some certain things. And yes, many people say Sankofa is about going back. You ever look at that bird? This is a beautiful one here. Which part of the bird turned back? The whole of the bird turned back? This part of the bird turned back. This part of the bird too turned back. The CPU part turned back, don't? Turn back together so that the people who type in the information, what do you call them? I don't remember what you call them. Them put in information in whatever them thing. That could have worked too. But I know, but the ones who put the information can send you that information. Yes, you can see that, you can fetch that, you can, whatever you want to do with it. But Sankofa, most importantly, is how you build a future based on what is solid, based on what is spiritually sound, mentally sound, physically sound, based on worshiping your own God. You see, even as Christians, sorry, I put you in this category. Here we know, yeah, man, we're Christians. You're not a Christian when your own Bible tells you to worship the God of your ancestors and you worship Jesus Christ. Check on the DNA, see which one I want to find Christianity in the DNA. I said that in a group the other day. People laughed. Christian is not my ancestor. The God of the Christian Bible is not my ancestor. Please allow me to worship the manifestation of God, because we do believe in a one God. But that manifestation of a God who has been introduced to me through my ancestors, that's what the Bible says I must do. Be the best Christian. Be the best Christian, because I'm worshiping the gods of my ancestors. So how'd that go? Yeah, you laugh. Not true, yeah? I am the best Christian. Rev, sorry. But I'm better than you, Rev. All right. I loved how the presenters left this question kind of open. Because when we talk about OBEAH and we're talking about OBIA, I would like to suggest something else. I'd like to suggest that these words operate at a different level of vibration. These words operate at different levels of vibration. Or one of them belonged to our ancestors and one belonged to some other people. The one them will spell it OBEAH. Me don't know what them do that about or what them say. But them see some little thing where them not even understand, because them not in a position to understand that which is greater knowledge than they have ever possessed. Okay, see they now? But understand them, understand. You see what? Are the right language? You see? Or all right, orality, that's what I talk about. That or them. None of them that overstand at all. Them understand exactly. Them understand how it goes. And so when we talk about how we use words and why it is necessary to use words some certain way, there are things that pain my spirit. I don't feel right now that I feel it's an experience I'm having. Because one day, if there's a God, him have to move me out of it, whether in this part of my eternal life or another part of my eternal life. But to sit here and talk about my ancestors in the language of another people, it hurts me somewhere where I can't feel it and touch any one spot. It hurt me so deep, where I have to talk about my ancestors in the language of another people. It not feel good. Wow, it don't feel good. It don't feel good. Obia versus Obeah. OBIA came from the Igbo people, the Igbo language. You can see it there. And it don't mean nothing with them people here that I talk about, because them not overstand. they could not wrap their heads around what our people were doing. They had a different meaning of a God being. They had interpreted God differently. There was a God who told them that it was okay to mutilate other people. To look at somebody who has 2 hands, 2 legs, a head, hair growing, just like you, and think it was okay to do unto them some very evil is not the word because it goes beyond. I do not have the word, but I'll use evil as a placeholder if I have your permission. Some very evil things. Which God is that? I wrote a poem that says, so if there's only one God, the one who raped my sister, murdered the one, and da. Him is your child too? So is my brother? Obia versus Obia. I really enjoyed the presentations today. Within this, and this was really kind of captioned very, very beautifully by the last speaker to talk about the knowledge systems. They are there. They are there. We need to open our eyes. We need to open our ears. Even using this English language, there's some things we can do. We can lift these words of English and put them in a high level of consciousness so that when we use them, we are moving energy in some very powerful ways. What did our ancestors know that so terrified these other people that they felt that our actions could really rob them of their monies and all the things that they hold dear? We knew how to manipulate energy because we're created in the image and likeness of a one God. And that God is the expert on manipulation energy. He created a whole creation. He put into being a whole creation by manipulating energy. Can you believe that? Basic physics. Energy, frequency, and vibration. Ta-da! Here I am. Ta-da! Look at the tree. No, they're not most afraid of people who can do them something. Understand that they can do them something. So yes, and in their ignorance, it became OBEAH, an action to demonize, criminalize, make us less than, and basically tell we're sick. Well, just generally mess with the identity, no? With the who we are. And somebody talked about the knowing who we are. I'm sorry for not calling the names of the persons, but we all heard the presentations. And somebody talked about knowing who we are, our identity. Yeah, talked about how the spiritual heritage helps us to reconnect or connect to our roots. Means reconnecting to who you are. In another meeting, I said to people, the tree grows both ways. It can't go away. How high it going to go without the roots, and how the roots going to manage without the top. So reconnecting to our roots is not a simple statement. It's a very powerful activity and action that we can take in how we redefine and respell. And as a matter of fact, abandon this OBEAH altogether and claim what it is our ancestors meant by the words they used, even if we have to translate them to English in present day, because that's what we understand. What is it they meant? When we reclaim our spiritual heritage, how do we use that as empowering? How do we move away from the injustices and the contradictions that Reverend Laws implied and suggested? How do we use this reclamation of spiritual heritage to put us on a footing where more of us will be walking around and say, good morning. I had a friend, she's kind of still my friend, but she's in spirit world. She was German and she didn't believe in God. No, I'm sorry, I'm lying. She was Austrian. She didn't believe in God. She was a Caucasian woman. In the present day meaning of that word, because originally that meaning, that word never have nothing to do with the color white. But anyway, she invited me to Austria, and I went to Austria. And people were walking around, good Scott, good Scott. Me say, Karen, what am I say? She said, oh, them greet you. Me say, yes, but what am I say? How me can hear good Scott? Good Scott. What am I supposed to say back? She said, you're supposed to say back, good Scott. You're laughing like you know what it mean. What it mean? This woman don't believe in God, and she walk around every day, 10 times a day or more, saying, good Scott.
Hello to God.
Greet God. Good Scott. We greet God. Greet God. No, and she's an atheist. She tell you plain and straight, not name God not exist. And all that I am doing is foolishness. And she speaks English very well. But on a daily basis, how many times would she say, go Scott? On an everyday basis, going to the supermarket, on the street, walking up and down. Because them greet, you know, them people that greet. They don't like we. We learn some very different ways now. We walk past people like that, we don't realize that it's a fellow human. Sorry? Say that? Of course, yes, yes, very much so. No, but look at it in the context of the woman who is not an atheist. That is the part where I look upon. When I look upon the whole system, they were not, they had their, but look at us speaking the language of the people who oppress us. What will they do? You get evil all around the place. Some of it is your fault, some of it is not your fault, some of it is just how creation turning around. But you know, I am really heartened by the presentations that were made. And I was really touched when Dr. Castor talked about the Black feminist anthropology, and she talked about the sacred ways of being. The sacred ways of being. How did our Obia, from our ancestral meaning, where it was a sacred way of being, become something demonized? Because others got a hold of it. And yes, I am going to stop right there, so because that is the best point to stop. Absolutely. Others got a hold of us.
Others got a hold of it. So some of us actually have to get out of here at 5 p.m. And I'm going to allow Dr. Anderson to give us her remarks as the discussant wrapping up for us these fantastic presentations, and in fact, within a context of the vision that she had as we contemplate questions asked by Amina. She dropped a powerful question. May I wonder if I don't miss it? No. What was the powerful question that she dropped? No, man, that's only one. The next powerful question that she dropped, which me no say I want to miss, was how do we teach ourselves to experience culture?
Yes, remember now that you say.
One powerful question that.
And that is similar to Dr. Castor's note of how do we listen to our ancestors? It's practically the same question, jumping in. I am Dr. Claudette. Unuchi Foundation, we say that we're making ancient knowledge accessible to our people, because one of the things that's been done to us is this big word called epistemicide, where there's been a deliberate killing of our knowledge. I want to thank everybody who presented, everybody who's there, everybody online. Thank you for your interest and for showing up to help us probe and answer some of these very pertinent questions. The other question that Dr. Blackwood Meeks asked was, how far should we go back? And that question is what prompted the formation of the Unuchi Foundation and the title Obia versus however. OBIA versus OBEAH. We say that we want to go back to a time before the evil others got a hold of our word and got a hold of us. I think that it's phenomenal that we acknowledge that our ancestry, our ancestral and our spiritual DNA is still with us and hiding in the culture in some aspects, more visible in other aspects, but really that what we're doing for the most part is performing culture, that we've become exotic, we've become tokens. People will argue that that's one way of preserving the culture somewhat, so that we still have, it's still visible somewhere. But again, how do we learn to listen to our ancestors? And this question has been asked. If we're talking about reparations and we're focusing on what has been done to our ancestors, have we asked them what they would consider for reparations? Do they want money? What is it that our ancestors... So these, I think that as we go forward and we're recalibrating the 10-point plan, if we don't want to be performative and exotic, we have to teach ourselves how to experience our culture. And we have to learn how to listen to our ancestors. And additionally, I would say, stop putting, the knowledge that our ancestors give us, putting it over there with that man there on the cross, that fellow there bleeding, that violent image that has been given to us as a savior. I want to say something about Obia versus Obia, and Okomfo Forfait saying that she's a better Christian than Rev Marvia Laws. And this is to come back to the Iboan foundation that I use, because I think that this is a very, very clear way of establishing that what has been framed by the slaveocracy as Obia has nothing really to do with us and our ancestors in real time. So it's, I think, 1754, and there's some Igbos hanging around in what is now, I think, St. Elizabeth. And German Moravians decided they were going to send missionaries. And they sent a missionary, I'm forgetting his name, and it will either come or not come. But when he landed and seemed to have been kind and was really interested in the lives and the situation of our enslaved ancestors, they called him Obia. They gave him the highest title that obtained within our ancient African system. Somebody who comes to help, somebody who comes to heal. That was a time in history when we projected onto let us just say, missionaries. Let me not go that route. Let us just say that we projected our ways of knowing and living onto a European spiritualist. But guess what? We demoted him within a year. Massa was dragging people out of service to rape them. He couldn't prevent them from going hungry and maintain that lack. Everything that the Obia man was able to do for them within their spiritual context, the German Christian missionary failed to, and he was demoted. This was 1754, when we still had our word as it obtained in the motherland. We demoted a Christian missionary because our ancestral way is not a way of allowing excessive violence. We don't tell our people that they are outwardly enslaved and inwardly free. This is nonsense. And so when Rev talks about George Lyle coming and that movement of Maoism merging with Christianity. And what would make Sam Sharp rebel could not be Christianity, because the first Igbos who called him Obia rejected this notion that you could be inwardly free and outwardly bound when you're being raped and beaten every day. So where do we want to start? What do we want to go back to? Language. Our sister in Trinidad spoke about recovery of language. We're talking about orality. We want to go back to our stories, but interpret them not in the English language. So Anansi is the prototype of the Obia man, because he's in the middle of the web, at the crossroad. As our sister said, he builds community. He's in the middle of the four roads, which is akin to Eshu, to Ekwensu. We don't use European lens. When we dispense with the European lens, then we can see our culture in its pure form. And this is very important, as Amina is saying, right? As Okomfo is saying, we need, how do we learn to experience our culture? We have to go back to the language. We have to go to the metaphysics. We have to go for the individual who needs to go back that far. There are other people who will settle for a Rasta. This is a one love. But we also have Irie, which we hear Orie, which is a stream of consciousness, which what Rasta man says, the mystic man. We also have the notion of the hair and the locks and the wisdom in the locks. Even the way our Dibia, our holy people sit, that's been given to India. When I show somebody a Dibia or an Obia sitting doing divination, the first thing they say, oh, that's an Indian man. We have been elided out of everything positive. Our ways have been demonized, and it is time to recover and to reclaim, even as it is within us. We learn to listen and to hear and to stop attributing those things that are good in our own culture to others, because then we will never learn to love ourselves properly. Hearsay can't go along. But most of what our people attribute negative to Obia is what they've heard. Oh, have you ever been to an Obia man? No. Anybody, ask anybody out there who telling you Obia is a bad thing. Ask them if they've ever been to an Obia shrine. They'll tell you no. Hearsay. We believe the negative about ourselves. So when we're contemplating our indigenous oral culture, which by the way is a post-literacy, it is not illiteracy. When we use emoticons now, this is Europeans trying to catch up with us. We were using emoticons long ago. This is our Nsibidi, this is our Uli, this is our Dinkra symbols, which we have been told are backward. But nobody wants to right now. You're on your phone and you send in an image. We were doing that long ago, but they're telling us that we're illiterate. The genius that obtained in our communities have been shielded from us. We've been separated by the criminalization and the continued demonization of our African ancestry. And we need to recover it with the help of those who are now in power, quote unquote. We cannot continue to be afraid of ourselves. This is the important point that's being made. Why not East Africa? You're allowed to go to Ethiopia. You can go to Egypt. But when it comes to West Central Africa, what is the fear of this primal knowledge? What is the fear of this primal knowledge? And if we tap into that power, one of the speakers spoke about the fear of African power. I think it was Dr. Castor. We need to find out why they were so afraid and then embody that very thing they were afraid of, because that is who we are. You're not going to cut us and find Christianity, but you will find some authentic human DNA. And our way, which is one love, our way which is one love, still runs through. And we still are able to manage in today's day. So how do we reclaim that? We learn to listen and we relearn language, houses, worldviews. We need to get into our universities, our basic school, our entire school system, the languages of our African forebears. This is the only way. Imagine a time when there's no evil. There is no word for evil in any native African language. I want you to think about that. I'm gonna stop, Sonia, and leave you to close. Think about the fact that none of the peoples who were snatched and brought over here had the word evil in their vocabulary. Does not exist in our culture. We talk about imbalance and we talk about disharmony. And we've come now to say, because of the invasion, that this is the definition of people. This was unprecedented violence. This word was demonized when we were trying to free ourselves from unprecedented violence. We should let the people know this. And the government should lead by decriminalizing the lie that is in the Obia law. It has nothing to do with our ideals and our ancestral ways of life. Thank you. We're not hearing you, Sonia.
Nope, it now work. It
We're
now work.
hearing you.
All right, brilliant, fantastic. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Deep and wide. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. You know, there is something about this time. I want to first of all just thank every single presenter, every respondent, Claudette or discussant. We have not given ourselves enough time to have this conversation today. And it is only a limitation of the linearity of time that we've been talking about. It doesn't mean that the conversation started today. It doesn't mean that the conversation is ending today. This is an ongoing conversation. And when I started in the introduction, I said, we must be carrying this conversation forward. I say that to say some profound gems, some absolutely important reminders have been shared with us today. I tried my best as I was reflecting on each person's presentation to bring out some of the things that were important to me, but I can just imagine there are myriad of important things that came up for you. Don't lose them. Let conversation continue to reverberate in our minds as we share, as we live with integrity as African people, as people of African descent in this part of the world. We are talking about something that is inherently, we understand it to be spiritual, but it is a way of life. It is our culture. It is the culture of our ancestors. And it is a way of life. And many of us today, sadly, are blocking our minds from the memory. I wrote something here. The noises in the blood, the vibrations in the DNA that keep calling us to act. So much things to say right now. So much things to say. I think I only want to reverberate in terms of the thoughts shared what violence is done to the soul or the body when we have to speak of our ancestors in the language of the oppressor. It's another gem, you know. Like we know things deep inside, but we don't give ourselves the time to articulate those questions, to say them out loud so we can hear them back for ourselves. A very important question. But Akomfo Fofie reminded us that yes, when we speak with a different vibration, we can use that language to find our way. Even as we seek to make sure that the children who are coming can be taught the languages for their own. So we must get into the schools as basic as they come with our African language and our spiritual traditions, our way of life. And that there is no word for evil in the languages of our ancestors, right? There are no words in those languages for many of the things that we talk about today that we shouldn't even be talking about. I have a way of saying some of the things we talk about and not be sucked in by the media, general media, social media, traditional media that keeps us from ourselves. I want to turn over now to a burning question to the audience.
I don't have a question.
Yes, you have a comment.
I don't have any question. I want to, again, thank you all very, very much. I think we should all applaud him.
Absolutely.
I feel that there is a fear. We fear ourselves. We have a lot of academic things to say. You know, we can put the commas and the semicolons in the right place, and we can research and research. But the question asks, did we ask the ancestors what they want? There is a definite methodology in spirituality with 4 coconut shells to ask the ancestors what they want. But when we write, we talk, we everything, but we are so afraid of the spirituality of Africa. We don't practice. So after all the talking, we go back into the school and we talk about Papa Legba. Why does he have a bag? Everybody write about this bag. What is in the bag? Why did Papa Legba have a bag? Where is he going? What did he do with it? And it all is in not language only. It is in the grounding of how you worship. You cannot say you're African and you are practicing African, but you still think Jesus Christ. Hallelujah, amen. How you do that? How you do it? I don't understand it because I'm an Ealosha 40-something years and I cannot understand it. I cannot understand it because if you're going to talk about Africa, you first have to find the divinities in Africa. You have to find the divine. You have to find the Orishas. You have to know that if you don't have an altar for your ancestor, you have not begun. And this is my passion. You cannot be writing and doing this and you yourself have not found that grounding of African spirituality, because that is when Papa Legba, no matter what you do, will lock up your doors. It is Papa Legba that open your doors for you to get that job that you sit down in. It is Papa Legba that does everything. And it's Papa Legba in his bag, who when you pray, is taking your prayers to the divine. So him can, you really believe him? You see how them tell us you must have a dean of this and a this of that. And you think the world don't set up so? It's set up. You have the divine and say, okay, Legba, you do this, or Batala, you do that, or Shun, you do that. Okay, no, ancestors, you do that. But because people don't understand the spirituality of Africa, forget everything else you do. Forget the Adinka sign. Forget language. The first thing you have to understand is spirituality. And I shouldn't say spirituality. Is the practice of how we worship as African people. How did our Africans worship? And they left the information. And one person said, how far back we have to go? You're right. It is right in our backyard. It is not something you have to go so far back to find. It is right here. And all the time we are talking and we can write papers. How you don't know how to talk to your ancestor then? And that you supposed for. How you going to ask? And did we ask? And it's simple. Some water and 4 coconut shell. But nobody wants to know that. Everybody wants to, because that is what we as Black people, we fear ourselves in the mirror. We look in the mirror and fear our own spiritual self. And that is where it begins.
Or who has to go. She's late for our 5 o'clock class. We have a microphone that has a red light again. We have one of our microphones with a red light. Friends of the center, seekers of knowledge, those who are grounding themselves in the world of Afro-Caribbean spirituality, as we have in this contemporary time, learning how to speak the language of our ancestors, learning how to be African people of integrity.
He said,
Descendants of African people of integrity, to not be ashamed of who we are. I want to thank all of you for sharing, for the light that you have brought into this room today around this discussion. I want to thank our panelists and our respondents, and let the conversation continue. I want to also thank our partners on this webinar, this hybrid event, the Unuchi Foundation, headed by Dr. Claudette Anderson. We were in many discussions, a team of us trying to pull this event together. Our speakers, Doctors Fadeki Castor, Diana Patton, Marvia Laws, Amina Blackwood Meeks, Emily Zobel Marshall, Mrs. Oluwakemi Somarin, and Okomfo Afofofie. And the staff, of course, of the Center for Reparation Research, whose job descriptions changed the day that I arrived there. I want to thank Miss Tricia Osborne, our project manager / admin assistant / digital media manager, and Mia McMorris, our junior research fellow, who is our chief operations manager as well. Really and truly thanking the staff also of the RHQ, who made sure that the room was set in good order. Our team at UETV, our technical support team that we have had, making sure that we can see you, you have seen us, we can hear you, you can hear us. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been a blessing.
Prof.
Yeah.
Prof, sorry, could you let them know that actively we're working? Could you speak about the calendar launch for March 20th? The Igbo calendar launch on the 20th of March at IOJ?
Go ahead, Claudette. Let us tell our online viewers and our audience here.
Yes, as Dr. Castor spoke about time, one of the things we're doing at the Unuchi Foundation is that we're recovering our culture through making available the West Central African time technologies. And so this year we'll be presenting the Igbo calendar to an Africana audience. We're live streaming 9 o'clock to 2 on March 20th at IOJ. We will have an Igbo watch, which goes anti-clockwise and is downward oriented. We will have an app that you can download. There's a free version. You can upgrade it at a cost. And we will have physical calendars. It's a 28-day, 13 months. This is the traditional way in which our ancestors access the forces. We have 4 days in a week which respond to the 4 forces, and we have 7 weeks in a month responding to the chakras and the notes of music, because Mo and music, Mo, we came here with music and we'll go home with music. So just want people to know that we continue the reparations, the knowledge reparations. You want to know what our ancestors were doing before they were snatched? This is how they kept time. So join us on the 20th of March. Prizes and surprises. We have some giveaways, and we'll just tune you into this particular knowledge system, which is also the matrix and the basis of the modern computer that we use. Thank you very, very much. I look forward to seeing you all there.
happening at the Institute of Jamaica. All right, March 20th. Thank you so much, everyone. Not sure if you wanted to.
No, you were finished.
Yes.
So all I wanted to say is we didn't come in with music, but we will leave with some music. Some steps, a nice song for you to step to as you go out the door and greet each other. This is a Yoruba song, and just in short, we say it means God's work is never done. Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Sure. Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́ o. 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 Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Kò lè bàjẹ́, kò lè bàjẹ́, kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Kò lè bàjẹ́, kò lè bàjẹ́, kò lè bàjẹ́ o. Iṣẹ́ Olúwa 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 kò lè bàjẹ́ o. 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 Iṣẹ́ Olúwa kò lè bàjẹ́